perhaps start a little sooner. Welcome back to the Retire with Peace podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dave Zaegel.
Welcome to the Retire with Peace podcast, the podcast where we help you create a fulfilling and stress-free retirement. Each week, we bring you expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you plan and live your best retirement life. Whether you're nearing retirement or already enjoying your golden years, this podcast is here to support you every step of the way. Let's embark on this journey together and discover how to retire with peace.
We've seen a lot of good problems lately, but some of those problems, I call them problems, they could have been mitigated by starting a little bit earlier on retirement planning. Now, some of these good problems include having too much in a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA. It could be having a lot of investments in a non-IRA account that have built up gains over time, and now we have to figure out what to do with those. Both are good problems, right? You got too much gains in a non-IRA account and perhaps too much in a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA for planning purposes. Those are really good problems. The challenge is, oftentimes when people are looking to transition into retirement, they don't start thinking as much about those things until, say, maybe 2 years, 3 years, maybe they even go out 5 years before they plan to retire and start planning those things. And that can be okay, depending on your situation, but sometimes it really is too late to make as much of a difference as we want to with those types of items, like the examples that I gave, if we wait until 5 years or less until retirement. People will come to us usually within that 5-year window. Sometimes people will say, I want to retire in 5 years. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes 3, sometimes tomorrow. It ranges pretty widely in terms of what people are expecting or wanting when they come to us with help for retirement planning. But regardless, it's helpful to start thinking about that a little bit sooner than maybe even 5 years from retirement. Because in those examples I gave, let's just go over the traditional IRA one, for example. We see this pretty often where people, as they are working, they're putting money towards traditional IRA to get a tax deduction. That can be fine because you might be in a relatively high tax bracket, earning more than you did in the past as you're later in your career. So it's not necessarily that that's a wrong thing, but maybe a decade before you retire, you might want to look at it and say, well, this tax deduction is nice, but I really do need to start building up more of the Roth bucket. And it takes some risk off of the what if taxes are higher 2-3 decades from now. I know it's hard to think about that, but really we are in relatively low tax brackets historically. So even if you're in some of those higher brackets, it could very well be higher for you a couple of decades from now, just depending on what the world looks like, which none of us know. But what I'm trying to get to is, oftentimes we are focused on doing Roth IRA conversions in that window between when you retire and when you have to start taking required minimum distributions and maybe Social Security. We're trying to pack a lot of conversions in there during that period to help bring down the tax bill overall over the long term. And that's all great, but perhaps if we are able to plan even earlier for retirement, we can make those Roth IRA conversions even more effective because we've already started building up a Roth bucket and the traditional IRA balance is lower in the first place and you have more built up in the Roth bucket. So it's not that it's awful if you don't start planning for this in advance, but I suggest perhaps think well in advance of retirement and start a little bit of that planning because you can make life significantly easier and better for you financially, even using the same tactics when you get to that stage of retirement. If you started planning a little bit more long-term, say even 10 years in advance of retirement. Same thing goes for the example I used where you've built up capital gains over time. That's an awesome thing, but maybe you should have taken some of those gains along the way and paid those capital gains taxes and lowered your basis for when you start getting into retirement. Just, again, it's more of a timing and a what if and reducing our tax risk because we never know what the tax laws are going to be. There may have been some stuff you could have done 8-9 years before you retired and started a process to put yourself in better shape. So it's great if you are 2 years, 3 years, 5 years out for retirement and you start planning then, that's still good. I would just say perhaps do that even sooner. Not that you have to have everything done with certainty, but start looking at things like how are investments positioned, how much could I lose to it? Doesn't even matter if I'm 10 years out. Just think through all those things about how your investments are structured, how things are structured from a tax perspective, because we want to be able to optimize those things for retirement. The sooner we can start doing them, generally the better.